Nothing is ever the left's fault. Have you noticed this, folks? Not once, not ever, nothing. We've got an ICE shooting, another sniper that tried to take out ICE officials in Dallas, Texas. The gaslighting continues. This comes on the heels of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and I'm sick of it, folks. And, if we can do anything for Charlie, it is to be absolutely devoted to the truth. And that's what we're going to get on this show today and every day with every breath that I have in my body. But every tragedy, every act of violence, every cultural collapse, it's always someone else's fault. It's never the left's fault. They're always pointing the finger. They shift the blame. They rewrite the story. They point the finger at you and me every single time, where they point the finger at the victim, never at themselves, who are actually responsible. Charlie Kirk's assassinated, and what does the left do? What do they say? How do they react? How do they respond? It's not the assassin's fault. No. The narrative becomes that it was Charlie's fault. It was his words, his influence, right? It was his movement. It was MAGA's fault. It was you and me, right? Jimmy Kimmel stood on national television and told the American people a complete and utter lie. That a MAGA supporter killed Charlie Kirk. We'll get to him in a second. But Kimmel, he smeared an entire movement. He turned a grieving nation into a punchline. And he did not take it back, by the way. He just made his appearance on his show. There was no apology given. And now, as if to prove the point that I'm making, the point that all of you know that is true today, we have this other sniper, this time in Dallas, who targeted the ICE agents, and you already know how the script will play out. And as a matter of fact, we are at a point in this country where it is so sad, it is so dangerous, it is so despicable that when these things happen, you don't even have to wait for the facts to come out, because you know. But, the left is not going to condemn the ideology that is responsible for this hatred, this time an attack on ICE agents. They're not going to take responsibility for the rhetoric that paints ICE as Nazis, ICE as villains. No, they'll recycle the same talking points. They'll say it's ICE's fault, it's Trump's fault, that we provoked it by fulfilling the Constitution, by demanding law and order. Oh, it's our fault. We provoked it. We created these conditions, not them. They'll blame the detainees. They'll blame, the border policies, the men and women who are upholding the law, anyone but the gunman who pulled the trigger and the ideology that drove it. And it never ends, folks. It just never ends. One act of violence after another, after another, after another, always excused, always rationalized. It's always redirected. And the left's hands are never dirty, because they've built a system where the blame is always outsourced. And the target is who? Every single time. It's us. It's you and me. I know I'm not Kamala Harris. I don't have her brain power or acumen. But I'm going to try and figure out what the root cause of this attack on the ICE agents was. It's really hard to figure out, but we're going to try and get to the root cause of it. First off, we've got the bullet casings. Oh, look, anti-ICE is written on it. I don't know. Is that a talking point from you and me? We're anti-ICE? I don't know. Let's look at some of the rhetoric surrounding ICE. Here's a Democrat representative not long ago.
Well, Tom Homan, let me tell you, all over the country, we will continue to stand up for our rights, and we will continue to call out the terrorist organization that is ICE.
The terrorist organization that is ICE. Now let's go over to MSNBC, where they use their cable programming like Al-Qaeda propagandists.
But you know what I've never seen a federal agent working a case do is pull a mask up so nobody knows who they are and go out and terrorize a civilian population. And I think it's important for us at this point to be very plain speaking when we say that this is not normal, it's not acceptable, and it's a danger sign. We are well past the point where we can just identify danger signs and say, oh, there might be problems down the road. The problems are here. They're in the right now. And as we see people being pulled off the streets, you know, the danger to law enforcement, quite frankly, is that when you're masked like that and people don't know who you are, someone might exercise their lawful right of self-defense to protect themselves, thinking they're being kidnapped. So the notion that this is for law enforcement's protection is utterly ludicrous, and we need to do away with that.
I mean, these people are sick and demented and twisted, folks. They have absolute darkness in their souls. The ICE agents are wearing masks because people like this sniper out there that are deranged lunatics on the left that are, you know, ingesting the left's hatred and propaganda, calling ICE a bunch of terrorists, ICE a terrorist organization. Well, they know that their lives are at risk for doing their jobs because they'll get doxxed. They will get targeted. They'll get people showing up at their homes and doors and shooting them to death. Deranged leftists, like the person that showed up and assassinated Charlie Kirk, like the Rand Paul's next door neighbor who broke his ribs and attacked him, like Steve Scalise and the Republican congressional baseball team that got targeted by a Bernie Sanders supporter that was spewing anti-Trump rhetoric that came from where? The left. I'm sick to my stomach. I'm sick to my stomach over this stuff. And the left will never hold itself accountable, so we have to do it. They are gaslighting America into destruction and annihilation. And the antidote to gaslighting is conviction about the truth and reality. And we will not bend the knee. You know, I'm going to read something to you from somebody on, his name's Joe Walsh. He is a frequent guest on these very stations in which he's invited on to spew this type of propaganda. He's a former Republican, served 2 years, one term as a, you know, supposed Tea Party conservative. And then, of course, he found himself on the left because he's so principled. Now, I want you to listen to this, what he posted. Political violence against ICE agents' facilities is wrong, period. But it's not surprising. I mean, for months, masked ICE agents have been violently accosting and disappearing citizens and immigrants off of our streets, mostly without any due process. Not surprising. People would turn to violence to push back against ICE. So here we are, Joe Walsh writes. What ICE has been doing is wrong and un-American. But any political violence against ICE is also wrong. It's wrong, but not surprising. Now, I want to stop there for just a second. This both sides that they keep talking about doesn't exist. There is one root cause of domestic terrorism in America, and it is driven by the left. Any political violence against ICE, there is no any political violence. There's left-wing political violence incited by people like Joe Walsh. He continues. How do we stand down? ICE should stop doing what they're currently doing. They should take off their masks and they should go after violent criminals who are in this country illegally. I hope you understand, because we are past the time of timidity, of cowardice, of trying not to cause offense or get attacked by the left by telling the truth. We are beyond that. The left is using political violence to achieve their policy objectives. So what Joe Walsh is saying here is, well, this sniper who was a leftist who had anti-ICE written on a bullet casing, well, in response to this act of political violence, ICE should bend the knee. In other words, it's our fault. Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Well, you know, you and me just need to stop being Christians. We need to stop speaking the truth. We need to stop holding and speaking about our positions. We will never surrender to you, scum. Never. Joe Walsh. Never. MSNBC. Never. Jimmy Kimmel. We do not surrender to domestic terrorists, which is what the Democrat Party has become in America. That's not inflammatory. That's fact. Now, I just want to get into Jimmy Kimmel because there's a lot we can learn from the entire Jimmy Kimmel saga about the left and how they operate and their demonic mentality. Charlie Kirk was right. This is a spiritual war, good versus evil. Is it a surprise that after a decade of smearing Charlie Kirk and you and me and MAGA and Trump as Nazis, as fascists, as a threat to democracy, as terrorists, is it a surprise that acts of violence are carried out against us, that they take Charlie Kirk's life? You know, for the left, it's so inverse. Charlie Kirk's words, they said, were hate speech. His words were violence. But when an assassin's bullet, a leftist assassin's bullet, finds its way to Charlie Kirk's neck and ends his life, well, that's just resistance, folks. Now, Jimmy Kimmel isn't a very bright guy. We know that. Most people on the left aren't bright, obviously. I mean, they are arguing for, chopping off, 8-year-olds' penises, and they think that's healthcare. So we know that they aren't particularly bright individuals. Certainly not moral, that's for sure. But I want to instruct Jimmy Kimmel and other people about what an apology is. There's certain elements that have to be included in an apology for it to be an apology, Jimmy. And I guess it requires 3 things. First off, it requires the actual words, "I'm sorry." I think that's a no-brainer, a no-starter, a non-starter. And then it requires a clear admission of what was wrong. And then it requires the naming of the specific person or group that was harmed. Without those 3 ingredients, Jimmy, it isn't an apology. It's bullshit. It's damage control. So let's play Jimmy Kimmel's comments before he was suspended first. I think that's a good place to start, if I even have them. Don't have it. So if you don't recall, Jimmy Kimmel he said that the assassin who murdered Charlie Kirk was one of us, that he was MAGA. So he lied about who carried out the shooting. Now, let's play Jimmy Kimmel's fake apology.
I don't think what I have to say is going to make much of a difference. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. I have no illusions about changing anyone's mind. But I do want to make something clear because it's important to me as a human, and that is you understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man. I don't think there's anything funny about it. I posted a message on Instagram on the day he was killed, sending love to his family and asking for compassion, and I meant it, and I still do. Nor was it my intention to blame any specific group for the actions of what it was obviously a deeply disturbed individual. That was really the opposite of the point I was trying to make, but I understand that to some that felt either ill-timed or unclear, or maybe both. And for those who think I did point a finger, I get why you're upset. If the situation was reversed, there's a good chance I'd have felt the same way. I have many.
I just can't with this stuff. This is unbelievable and outrageous. He gets up there, his suspension is lifted, he goes back on stage, and the first thing he does is lie and gaslight. He explicitly said that the killer was MAGA. He did make light of the assassination. He did use it to score political points against Donald Trump and the right. He did not respect the moment. He didn't have any humanity in his heart, and he still doesn't have. The left is totally unrepentant. Unrepentant. If Kimmel had a heart and soul, what he would have said is, I want to apologize to Charlie Kirk's family. I want to apologize to the American people. I want to apologize sincerely to Donald Trump and those that support him. Because I said on this program that the killer was MAGA when in fact we knew that he was not MAGA. He was indoctrinated by leftist ideology. And for that, I am sorry, and I won't do it again. I've learned from he didn't do any of that, did he? Well, yeah. Some of you people misinterpreted what I said. It's too bad that you did. That's obviously not what I meant. I didn't actually point fingers, and I'm not pointing fingers now. This was a deranged guy, just one guy. No, he was one of you, Kimmel. He was one of you. And this idea that we are not able to connect ideology fueling these acts of violence with the acts themselves is untrue. If that's the case, then we wouldn't have killed, al-Zawahiri, who was the guy who influenced so many. He was the chief propagandist of Al-Qaeda, the English propagandist. He was born in the United States of America to Yemeni parents. And of course, he was a radical Islamist. He was a cleric. He preached in a mosque in Virginia. He preached in a mosque in San Diego. Several of the individuals that hijacked the planes were in his congregation, whatever they call it at a mosque. We don't consider these people not responsible because of the propagandists that fuel the hatred. The truth is the left is recruiting these radicals. They've already created them in our schools. They've been around for a long time. They've filled their souls with lies and hatred. They're leading them to the path to hell. And they want to pretend that they aren't responsible for what's going on. Did you expect an apology from Kimmel, by the way? Any of you out there? I'm not surprised by that. I didn't expect it. And what's so sickening is that the left tried to make Jimmy Kimmel a free speech martyr. Jimmy Kimmel should have been fired for what he said. If we lived in a moral society, he would have been fired. He already has no ratings to begin with, so it's already the fact that he has a show has nothing to do with his performance. He shouldn't have a show, but he has one because he's a useful propagandist for the left. So he made himself out to be, and the left made him out to be, a speech martyr. And yet Jimmy Kimmel is back on his show. You know who's not coming back? You know whose free speech was taken away forever? It wasn't Jimmy Kimmel. It was Charlie Kirk, who had a bullet put in his throat. And the left has the audacity to elevate Jimmy Kimmel to martyrdom while they laugh and mock us for watching a memorial service to honor Charlie Kirk. What I didn't play there because I don't care. I'm sick of Jimmy Kimmel. I don't want to hear any more from him. He shifted the blame after that, and he railed against censorship, and he accused Sinclair and Nexstar of being un-American for suspending the program. He tried to turn that into a lecture on free speech while the man that he just smeared before he was suspended is dead, was silenced forever. Although not forever, because his legacy carries on with you and me. And, Jimmy Kimmel goes on to invoke Jesus and, Charlie's widow, Erica Kirk. If you believe in the teachings of Jesus as I do, I won't be lectured about Christianity from you secularists. But this is the playbook of the modern left on full display. They deny, they deflect, they cry foul, and we're held to a different standard entirely, aren't we? And what Kimmel, the saga ultimately reveals is that when the left lies, the media lets them get away with it. I don't know if you saw this. Keith Olbermann, who, I guess he was once on MSNBC, an MSNBC host. So after Charlie Kirk's assassination, he posted these he posted these on social media, and then of course pulled them down. But let's look at them. Keith Olbermann, and I'm sorry I have to use coarse language here. I'm going to say it because it should be said. Keith Olbermann posts to Scott Jennings, right? So you can see it on the screen. I'll say it to all you listening in a minute. So Scott Jennings, obviously, is the only person that's worth watching on CNN. He's brave, he's articulate, and he's a special person. So Scott Jennings is the lone conservative over at CNN, nightly on that panel. So Keith Olbermann, after Charlie Kirk is assassinated, goes on to X and social media and posts, "You're next, motherfucker, but keep mugging to the camera." But Keith Olbermann apologized. Let's listen to Keith Olbermann's apology, shall we? You'll notice it's missing some of the necessary ingredients to a genuine apology. "I apologize without reservation to Scott Jennings. Yesterday, I wrote and immediately deleted 2 responses to him about Kimmel because they could be misinterpreted as a threat to anything besides his career. I immediately replaced them with one specifying what I actually meant." No, we know exactly what you meant, Olbermann. We know exactly what you meant. It wasn't about being fired. It was about having a bullet put in Scott Jennings. "I oppose and condemn political violence and the threat of it," Olbermann continued. "All times are the wrong time to leave an inadvertent impression of it, but this time is especially wrong. I should have acknowledged the deletion and apologized yesterday. I'm sorry I delayed." Now, these people only do it because of the immense pressure. He didn't have a change of heart. He doesn't care. He's out there posting more hatred today, I'm sure, and every day since, and in the future, he will continue to do so. The left will not change course because in their minds, they're not guilty of anything. These people believe they are sanctified. They believe they are gods amongst men. And that's the point. And I'll get into some stuff with Don Lemon and this stuff about Christian nationalism and how that's influencing and why the left is using that as a bludgeon, to try and prevent you and me from having a voice in the public square. Are you sick? Are you sick as I am? You'd think there'd be a wake-up call for the left, if they had any morality whatsoever after assassinating Charlie Kirk. But they double down, don't they? They double down every time. Let's listen to Hillary Clinton, just for another example here. Let's listen to Hillary Clinton, what this demonic person had to say.
We have got to stop demonizing each other.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, I think most of that right now in our country's history is coming, from the right, coming from people who want to dominate. They want their point of view. Writing out slavery from history, that doesn't make it go away. We have got to stop with the finger pointing and the scapegoating.
The only person doing that is the left. But there's the gaslighting again. The gaslighting continues. Who has rhetoric out there smearing people as Nazis? But more importantly, it's not just rhetoric, folks, because the right, and I got to explain something historically about left and right in just a second, but the right, MAGA, conservatives, Christians, we are not predisposed to violence because we answer to a transcendental power and morality. The left answers to the state. That is their altar. That is their God. It is politics. For Charlie Kirk, it was a means to protect culture, to improve the nation. It wasn't everything to him. And that's why our stances don't change. It's the left that goes from abortion should be safe, legal, and rare to taxpayer-funded infanticide. How is that possible? Shifting morality, moral relativism. They do not have transcendent principles and virtues like we do. I read in the Joe Walsh, they sanctify violence. They justify it. And every time it's their violence, they say, we condemn all acts because they do not want to acknowledge, they do not want you to acknowledge that it's coming from them. So it's ISIS' fault. Oh, they're wearing masks. That could lead people to use their Second Amendment right to kill them, and they'd be well within reason because they won't know. They're wearing uniforms. They're not walking around like Antifa and BLM attacking law-abiding citizens and burning things. Are you kidding me? And you got Gavin Newsom in the state of California where I live, who just passed a law Get this, a brand new law in California. Now, he can't enforce this. He can go to hell. But a brand new law in California bans ICE agents and most law enforcement officers from wearing masks to protect their identities. Think about that for a second. A cop can't cover his face to shield his family from retaliation. But an Antifa thug or a BLM rioter can hide behind a mask all day long. That is not an accident, folks. That is policy. This isn't about transparency. You know, the left wants to create this secret police narrative, always pushing, always pressing. Nazis, fascists, we're Mussolini, we're Hitler. Flipping reality on its head. And they want you to believe that law enforcement hiding their faces from violent mobs is the same thing as some authoritarian regime with nameless secret police. Gavin Newsom's out there saying, you know, we're not North Korea, Mr. President. We're not the Soviet Union. This is the United States of America. Yeah, where we don't allow criminal illegals to sit here in our cities. So if you're a criminal, if you're a rioter, if you're an illegal alien, oh yeah, you can cover up your face to loot, to riot, to burn, to murder, to assault cops. No problem. We protect that. But the people tasked with actually defending the public, they're stripped of the same protection. This nation can't tolerate much more of this, folks. We just can't. We just can't. All right, 1 second here. Are you and your partner struggling to conceive? If you took the COVID vaccine, there is cause for concern, and you're not alone. A recent study led by Danish researcher Dr. Vibeke Minichi analyzed birth data from women aged 18 to 39 over a 2-year period starting in 2021. The findings suggest a significant decrease in birth rates among vaccinated women, with data indicating a reduction in egg count by nearly 60%. Since 2021, fertility rates have significantly declined in many regions around the world, and the wellness company created the 3-in-1 Ultimate Spike Detox, crafted with 100% natural ingredients, specifically designed to help your body clear harmful spike proteins, reduce inflammation, and support overall health. Don't wait. Experience the only formula approved by Dr. McCullough, a top freedom-fighting doctor who risked it all. Head to dailyclouthealth.com and use code DailyClout to get 10% off plus free shipping. Spike Detox your body today, okay? You know, I don't have infinite time. We don't have infinite time, you know, on the show today. But I do want to explain a little bit about, you know, the left likes to control the language for obvious reasons. We operate in America on this kind of left-right political lingo, right? So the Democrats are the left and Republicans are the right, and we've adopted that ourselves, okay? But these terms, you have to understand where they come from because they don't actually apply to the United States of America in the way that the left uses them. You know, left, right, I mean, its origins are in France when you had, you know, kind of monarchical, imperial, you know, sympathizers on the right of, I guess you could call it parliament. On the left, you had, you know, your kind of communist revolutionaries. And so that's not what the right is, obviously. Truthfully, there isn't a quote unquote right in the US based on that. I mean, this got imported. It's a foreign graft on American politics, right? So, you know, a lot of this came from Marxism. It became popularized during the revolution in Russia, and it was incorporated here. Now, the left likes to talk about far-right extremism or far-right violence, which is a separate thing from MAGA, a separate thing from conservatism and Republicans altogether. There is not racism in the body of MAGA and conservatism. You know, what the right is, what MAGA represents, what conservatives have always represented. And look, I'm not saying it's pure and it's perfect all the time, but fundamentally what we stand for is the founding of the country. We're constitutionalists. So we're the originalists of this country that carried the baton of the founding fathers forward. So, when some neo-Nazi act takes place, the left says, well, that's an example of the right. And they want to lump us in with that right. That has nothing to do with us. We don't preach that. We don't espouse it. We don't endorse it. So, for example, when the individual killed, I think 10 black people, it was a racist attack, 10 black people in a supermarket in Buffalo, New York, several years ago, he was not MAGA. He was not conservative. He wasn't a Republican. He was anti-Fox News. He was an eco-fascist, which obviously comes from the left, and he hated black people. And he cited replacement theory. And so the left seized upon that to try and attach him to us, which we have nothing to do with any of that. And frankly, the replacement theory is not a right-wing invention. It's a left-wing policy that we have simply called out. The left for many years, folks, has openly celebrated replacement theory, which is replacing Americans with imported foreign illegals through, illegal immigration. They've said it's a good thing for the left because it will give them political power. So it's not ours, it's theirs. They're the ones pumping that out there and doing it. And what the left depends upon to cite these false claims that right-wing extremism or right-wing domestic terrorism is the greatest threat to the country is the Anti-Defamation League. And the Anti-Defamation League is led by Jonathan Greenblatt, who is an Obama guy. It is not a pro Jew, anti, originally existed to protect against anti-Semitism, but that's not what it is today. It's just a political weapon of the left. So the way they get these statistics so they can cite them to you is they'll take a bar fight, and I don't know. So I don't want to be, I'm not, I don't know, Paducah, Kentucky. I don't know. Maybe there's some racists. There's racists everywhere. I'm just, so, you take a bar fight and two neo-Nazis get in a fight and one kills the other, and they will put that in this and say, this is an example of, right-wing violence or whatever else. Meanwhile, all of these episodes of obvious left-wing violence, right? You can look at Audrey Hale, the transgender shooter in Nashville. That didn't make it in the ADL, even though that manifesto read like a Barack Obama or Joe Biden speech. Anti-white, anti-American, but they don't include that. So it's not true. Don't be gaslit by this. This is what the left has to do because their whole platform is built on lies. So they have to go and fund giant organizations like the ADL to pump out false statistics so they can then cite them as the experts. We don't have a right wing. We don't have a conservative or MAGA terrorist problem in America. It only comes from one side and one direction, and it's from the left. You know why? I wasn't sure if I was gonna go there. Oh, here by the way is the headline with the ICE. Dallas sniper had anti-ICE messages written on ammo. 2 dead, 1 injured. I think I want to just break and talk about the Tylenol stuff for just a second, honestly, for my own sake, because it's so important to talk about this stuff. I want everyone to understand the facts. I want you to be informed about how the left does this and their tactics. It's so important that we all become fighters for the country. And truth has to be what we build our movement on. But, so Donald Trump came out and, they're linking Tylenol to autism. And I saw something funny, but what the left did, right? They took to TikTok to go start swallowing Tylenol. I think I saw Tim Pool posted something that was very funny. He said, Donald Trump should just come out and link oxygen to autism. Oxygen to autism. Funny point. But I want to play a couple of things. Here's some TikTok stuff going around. So if you're just listening, these are all pregnant women who are downing Tylenol. Here's another one.
The ring of fire. 28 weeks pregnant. You know what I'm gonna take? Some Tylenol, acetaminophen. It's gonna work like a charm, and my baby won't have autism.
Mental illness in this country is out of control. Trump derangement syndrome is absolutely a mental illness. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Now, what's amazing about this is Tylenol in 2017 posted this on social media. We actually don't recommend using any of our products while pregnant. Thank you for taking the time to voice your concerns today. That's not from Trump. That's from Tylenol in 2017. And these women are downing Tylenol because Trump. So Trump, the act of Trump saying something will drive the left to do it. So, maybe Tim Pool's right. Hey, whatever you do, don't breathe, or I don't know. I mean, just something with the opposite day for these people. Now here's Reuters, right? Here's Reuters in 2013 about Tylenol. Too much Tylenol in pregnancy could affect development. Expectant mothers often take Tylenol with the active ingredient acetaminophen to deal with back pain, headaches, or mild fevers during pregnancy, but frequent use may be linked to poorer language skills and behavior problems among their children, according to a new study. So whether you want to call it autism or something else, last time I checked, one symptom of autism is poor speech and behavioral issues. Here's Reuters again. This is 2010. Acetaminophen tied to childhood wheezing and allergies. A pair of studies suggests that the common painkiller acetaminophen, better known as Tylenol, may be fueling a worldwide increase in asthma. According to one study out Thursday, acetaminophen could be responsible for as many as 4 and 10 cases of wheezing and severe asthma in teens. While no one knows if the drug, pardon me, folks, causes asthma by itself, another report shows for the first time that many toddlers took Tylenol before they developed asthma symptoms such as wheezing. Let's just do this one more time. And yet the genius pregnant women on the left, here's their great resistance, doing harm to their babies because Trump says they shouldn't harm their babies. That's enough. That's enough. I'm just looking through some of my clips here I want to play for you. That memorial service was remarkable for Charlie Kirk. I mean, the outpouring of grief and love and show of loss, you don't see that on that scale very often. That's usually reserved for, when Reagan dies or JFK or MLK. But this is the kind of stuff, for kings and monarchs and presidents. And Charlie Kirk was none of those things, but he was greater. And the left just refuses to even try to understand the response and what took place. They won't do it. I saw somebody that used to work for me when I lived in Milan and managed a Marc Jacobs store there. Milan, Italy, I'm talking about. And he's not religious. He's a, one of these intellectuals, very smart, but, communist. And I posted a video of the line outside of a church in Milan. It wasn't even the main Duomo. It was just, if you've been to Italy or Europe, there's churches all over the place. And he posted in Italian, basically like, I can't believe this. Like, not like in a positive way, I don't think, but just kind of like, why all this for Charlie Kirk? But even in Italy, you had lines of people that wanted to go to church. This revival of faith that's taken place because of this is a stunning thing. And I understand that some of you are aren't Christian or anything else, but I'm not going to pretend to be something that I'm not. And Charlie's death did something to me that I wanted to happen, but didn't think was possible. And that is to awaken the faith that I have, to really bring it to the forefront and make it the center of my life. I think for a lot of Christians, including me, even though I believed and believe that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior and came and died for our sins and rose again, it happened over 2,000 years ago. And it was very hard for me to take that, really commit that to heart, to feel it and understand what Jesus did for me and for all of us. It just couldn't pierce me. And that's why martyrdom becomes such a powerful thing, because it gives you a glimpse. You know what I mean? Jesus was perfect. He was the Son of God, the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. You know what I mean? We will never measure up to Christ, to God. We can only try. And what we know is that we're forgiven. There is grace. But seeing Charlie Kirk die like that, so vividly on camera, it did pierce me. It pierced me in a way that Jesus's death couldn't quite, and I'm not saying his death was more important than Jesus, okay, don't misunderstand me, but I'm saying emotionally, because I'm here now, not back 2,000 years ago, seeing that helped me just feel it and understand what that sacrifice is, to give your life for a cause, for people. And it's powerful. Stephen, the first Christian martyr. I mean, there's examples throughout history, and without that martyrdom, I mean, every time that martyrdom took place, it was an earthquake that spread Christianity to the ends of the earth. And that's what happened with Charlie Kirk. And if you're not a believer, maybe you don't understand what I'm saying, but that is what happened. You know, Charlie Kirk, it wasn't about him being, you know, a force to convert young people to the cause of liberty. That's not even what it was. It was that he was an example of somebody who really did try his best to live out his faith. Christianity and Jesus and God and his word, that was the center of Charlie's life. Not like me, where for most of my life it's about, you know, I'm trying to put together my own selfish demands and needs and wants and desires, and then, you know, Jesus. He made Jesus the center of his life, and everything else came from that. And that's why you saw this movement. It was absolutely rooted in faith. It wasn't about politics. But people like Don Lemon can't understand it. And I want to talk about this, and I might not get into the UN stuff much. I want to prioritize this. I think this is more important to what's happening in the country right now. Trump went and spoke at the UN. It was amazing, as you would expect. The UN tried to sabotage him. I think they did shut down the escalator on him. They stopped the teleprompter. I mean, this is the type of behavior that UN is engaged in against the president of the United States and his wife, Melania. But anyway, I want to play this clip of Don Lemon, because in the wake of Charlie's memorial, the left doubled down on one of its favorite smears, which is branding Christian conservatives like me as a Christian nationalist. I don't claim that title, but I also don't think Christian nationalist is even a bad thing. But, you know, they want to use it like you're a Nazi. And the reason they use the word Christian nationalist, of course, is because they're intending to conjure these images of extremism and of theocracy, which obviously this nation doesn't support a theocracy. But if loving your country and grounding your convictions in scripture makes you a Christian nationalist, then America's own founding fathers wear the exact same label. And that's the point. These were men who opened Congress with prayer. They were men who invoked providence. They appealed to the laws of nature and nature's God. And so the reason the left pursues this narrative, pushes this smear, I should say, of Christian nationalism is very simple. It gives them cover to silence us. They want us to silence ourselves, actually. So by painting my convictions or Charlie's convictions or your convictions as dangerous, they are seeking to justify banning our influence from public life. But the thing is, the absurdity of this is that every political position, it flows from some moral framework. To claim that only Christian morality must be excluded, that's not neutrality. That is hostility towards Christianity itself. And that's really what this is about. The left is not just hostile to our ideas. They are openly hostile to Christianity. So we can look at Don Lemon's reaction. So after Charlie Kirk's memorial, this disgraced CNN host, well, he said that what took place at the memorial wasn't, faith on display. He said it was religious nationalism. And I'll play his words in a second, maybe. He called it a revival meeting wrapped in a memorial, a political rally dressed as a church. In other words, to the left, any public, display of faith is extremism to them. And yet the left is routinely trying to assassinate and murder their political enemies. Here's a little bit of what Don Lemon said. I can't hear what he's saying. I don't know if you could hear what he's saying. Because I don't know, I'm not going to play a clip that 50-50 could be silent on your end. But I read you the quotes. The left couldn't even let us grieve without attacking us. And this is the big lie from Hillary Clinton and the left, that we seek to control and dominate and everything else. I mean, they simply project onto us everything that they are. And they always run back to this phrase, which I really want you to understand this. This is very important. So the left always uses this phrase, separation of church and state, to try and dismiss our views and our policies. The phrase separation of church and state does not appear anywhere in the Constitution. It comes from Jefferson's 1802 letter. He wrote a letter in 1802 to the Danbury Baptists. The Danbury Baptists at the time feared persecution from the state church in Connecticut. And Jefferson, because they had control over taxation and policy, and the Baptists at the time were kind of a minority religious group. And so Jefferson, in this letter, by talking about separation of church and state, he was assuring them that the First Amendment built a wall. But it's the opposite of what the left says it means. Jefferson was assuring them that the wall wasn't to keep Christianity out of government. It was to keep government out of Christianity. So like all things the left engages in, half-truths or complete lies. And in this case, it's the complete inversion of the intent of the phrase that doesn't even appear in the Constitution. It's from a letter that Jefferson wrote, which is intending to enforce the opposite of what the left claims he was doing. Christianity cannot be compartmentalized. It doesn't allow compartmentalized lies. I mean, this is one of and the reason the left does this and pushes so hard is because it's a lot easier for them not to have Charlie Kirks that exist at all. For us to just self-censor and not talk about these things. And that's why they push this. Jesus didn't say, hey, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and leave the rest of your life untouched by God. That's not what he said. He said all authority belongs to him. And that means Christians respect civil government, but we're also called to shape every sphere of life, including politics. And if we don't do it, the left is. And their ideology is a religion unto itself, except it makes them gods rather than some transcendent power like we do. So anyway, I just want to be clear. Pretending politics can be severed from faith itself That's a political position. And what it does is it cedes power to the secular left. So for Christians, there is no neutral ground. If the church is silent, by the way, the void is going to be filled, as I said, by ideologies that are hostile to God's law. Every policy reveals what a nation worships, and it's going to worship something. And if people are going to refuse to acknowledge God in their politics, they will end up worshiping the state instead. That's the reality. So I want to read some of these comments and address them. A lot of misinformation out there. Roscoe, who I respect, says Trump shouldn't be getting entertainers fired. Roscoe, he didn't get entertainers fired. It was proven that the FCC wasn't behind it. Now, Brandon Carr, who runs the FCC, went out there and did say, we can do this the hard way or the easy way. But he didn't ultimately put pressure. And that's not even the way it works anyway. A complaint has to be filed. There's an entire system that goes into that. This is part of the problem, is adopting the left's false premises as our own. And this is a weakness we have to overcome, Roscoe. I saw that. I understand your point. Rand Paul and I believe Ted Cruz came out and said, we can't do this. We don't want to censor free speech. And a lot of this buys into the narrative that we are somehow like the left. We are nothing like the left and never like the left. It's not possible for us to be like the left, and we're not being like the left. Now, first off, we are in unprecedented times. The political violence that is only coming from one side, from the left, has not happened before. Now, you can put your head in the sand and claim kumbaya and just say, oh, Charlie Kirk's dead, whatever. Oh, Rand Paul was attacked. Oh, Trump, they tried to assassinate him twice. Oh, ICE is being fired on by snipers. And you can choose, I want to live in that society. Or you can address the root cause and be honest and realistic and stop being a coward. So Trump didn't get him fired. The broadcasters, some of them that carried the station, decided to continue to preempt the show and not hold it up. And by the way, these are the same people Jimmy Kimmel celebrated when Tucker Carlson was taken off Fox News on his own show. The left is a censorship machine. They tried to set up the disinformation board to police free speech, setting it up at the Department of Homeland Security under Joe Biden. The FBI was in contact with Twitter at the time, working with them to silence voices of dissent. And so I want to address something else. There is a thinking out there that is totally unacceptable in my mind in terms of trying to do what's necessary to save the country. And that is making all your decisions, informing all of your opinions based on what if the left does it? What if the left uses this against us? What planet are you living on? Where have you been the last 10 years? The left has already used lawfare to go after us. And it is not the same lawfare to go after people who actually broke the law. What if the left, we're going after Adam Schiff, who committed mortgage fraud potentially? Barack Obama engaged in a literal coup when he had the ICA create a false report that said that Putin was trying to help Trump win the election, despite the fact that no evidence proved that whatsoever. And on the contrary, it actually proved the opposite. They've tried to assassinate twice. So what if we already know what the left's going to do? Us being weak and cowardly is not going to have an impact on how the left engages. So that's the first thing. And Roscoe says, I don't think anyone should hide behind a map. The left is trying to kill us. Now, Matthew Spears says, stop lumping everybody in categories because everyone is different. Of course, everyone is different. When you talk about radical Islam, it's understood that not every Muslim is out there working for Al-Qaeda or ISIS or Boko Haram trying to kill Christians. That doesn't work on me, Matt. If you want to talk about a person, say their name, Matt says. Don't lump people in with the left. There is a ideology driving all of this, Matthew. It's absolutely fair. And the reason we have this problem of violence is because people like Matt are afraid to speak the truth. They're afraid to acknowledge the threat in the country. The leftist ideology is driving all of this. You can call it radical left, whatever you want, but it's mainstream. I played those clips for you on TV. Mainstream, Democrat congressmen and other people going on there, calling for violence, justifying violence. You know? But Matt doesn't understand the Constitution. Congress shall make no law respecting any religion. That doesn't mean that you can't practice your faith in public. That doesn't mean you have to just, divorce yourself from your faith in Congress. I told you how the founding fathers conducted themselves praying before Congress. That's not the establishment of a religion is to say, this is a theocracy, Matt. And if you don't bow down and pray, we're going to behead you like they do in Muslim countries. But there's no getting through to Matthew because he doesn't have any basis of fact. He hasn't studied these things. He doesn't know what he's talking about. For him, it's just, you're wrong. I can give you every fact that exists, and you'll still say, you're wrong. Because you aren't interested in the truth. You aren't interested in reality. All you're interested in is some, preconceived bullshit you were taught in school. Did you go to college, Matt? But I want to talk again about this memorial because it was beautiful. Here's Erica Kirk.
That man, that young man, I forgive him. I forgive him because it was what Christ did and is what Charlie would do.
The left called that a Nazi rally, by the way. And what we saw with the Charlie Kirk Memorial and the left's reaction, comparing it to even BLM and all that sort of stuff, is two competing visions for America. On the left, their sacred moment was the BLM riots of 2020, George Floyd murals, BLM marches, riots they sanctified as justice. And that vision exalts grievance. That is the ideology of the left, Matt, grievance. It glorifies rage. That's the leftist ideology, Matt. And they canonize, criminals as martyrs on the left, Matt. But Kirk's memorial, they lifted up faith. They lifted up family. They celebrated the eternal. And instead of burning cities, instead of that, we had prayers. Instead of chants of vengeance, there were hymns of hope. And instead of a mob demanding retribution, there was a nation that was grieving a man who had called his generation to higher ground. Two visions. Which one do you want? Charlie Kirk or George Floyd riots? Now, this was especially powerful. There was a Cubs player that skipped. He's a rookie on the Cubs. He knew Charlie Kirk. They would text because if you didn't know, Charlie Kirk was a huge Cubs fan. And he skipped a game to show up to the memorial. But I'll play that for you in just a second. What if I told you one of the most studied supplements in the world, creatine, isn't just for bodybuilders or men at the gym? That's one of the biggest myths out there. The truth is creatine is incredibly beneficial for women. And you don't even have to exercise to feel the effects. Here's why. Creatine helps your body produce quick energy. Yes, it supports lean muscle, strength, and recovery if you do work out. But research also shows it boosts brain health, improves memory, reduces mental fatigue, and even supports bone strength. That means better energy for your day, sharper thinking, stronger aging, whether or not you ever step foot in the gym. And no, creatine will not make you bulky. That is another myth, by the way. What it will do is help you feel stronger, more energized, and more resilient in everyday life. So if you've written off creatine as a guy thing, it's time to rethink it. Your body and your brain may thank you. If you'd like to learn more about how creatine works and why it's such a game changer for women, check out this short article at getnativecreatine.com/dailyclout. The site again is getnativecreatine.com/dailyclout. So here's this Cubs player. I thought this was just a remarkable thing that he did. Here's what he said, because the media pointed out, well, you could get criticized for this and whatever else. And this man is brave.
All the veteran players that I've talked to, and really the whole team, having their support was really important to me. And then, I mean, Charlie, he was, he was someone that I met at the apartments in Arizona where I lived, and then someone who was one of the biggest Cubs fans I ever met. And he texted me after every game, great win for the Cubbies, and he was super, super supportive of us, and obviously someone who was really faithful, so we connected on that front as well. But yeah, I mean, his wife Erica had texted me asking me if I would come to the funeral, and I felt as though it was something that was really important for me to do.
Are you concerned about the backlash, because there is a lot of politics involved in this?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I'm not concerned at all. No, my connection with Charlie was through our faith. That's something that drives me every day. That's the reason why I'm able to do what I do every day, and that's something I'm extremely thankful for. I know without my faith and without the many blessings I've been given in my life that I wouldn't be here, able to talk to you guys, able to help this team eventually go and win championships. So that's something I feel really, really blessed about. So whatever backlash comes is okay. I feel strong about my faith, and that what was meant to be happened.
That's not an easy thing to do, and he demands all the respect in the world for doing that, to skip a game, to get the blowback. And that's more evidence of just how significant, Charlie Kirk and his impact on this nation was. And there are so many people who I've talked to who have been impacted by this, so many text messages coming in, I was not a personal friend of Charlie. I didn't know him. I didn't have dinner with him, but I was his publicist last summer for what would be his penultimate book, because there's another book coming out apparently. And I just, between you and me, I want to let you know that, I've been so affected by this, as so many of you. And I have finished a first draft of a book on Charlie that does celebrate him and explains much of the reason that we're in this predicament to begin with, and explains what Charlie believed and why it was important. It started out kind of as a therapy for me to try and find words for how I was feeling, because I've never felt this way before. And then it turned into something that I hope will be inspirational for a lot of people in this country grappling with the same thing. Where do we go from here? What do we do? And ultimately, it's a message of hope. I still, it's hard to talk about. It's hard to think about, but I do believe that God is working in good ways. Good will come of this, as God promises. And it's horrific what happened, but we believe in eternal life, and Charlie Kirk is certainly in heaven now, but his legacy is so important, and for it to work the way it has in my own life is a testament to God, to Christ, to Charlie himself. And I am actually excited, if I can use that word, for what is happening to the country, despite the left and their refusal to change their tune, to lower their rhetoric, to acknowledge, and show us some remnant of human decency. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, I don't answer to the left. I don't answer to Matt here. I answer to a higher power. And so our morals and virtues are not, fluid. They're not. And I think this nation is coming together. I think that we're becoming bolder, and that's really all that needs to happen. But you can go over to my Substack for updates on that. I'll let you know. I'm working with my publisher right now, drewallen.substack.com. Follow me there for some updates, and I'll keep you posted on that book and what happens. But I hope that it resonates with all of you. But that's all we have time for today. I want to thank you all for watching. You too, Matt. I don't hate you, Matt, by the way. And I enjoy, for me, it's like debate and stuff is sport. It's fun to go back and forth. It's all good. But God bless you all sincerely. And until next time.